Hi, I'm Carcino. Oh, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it.
No one knows Carcino and none of these.
There's so much going on in the world, and I'm just giving my 2 cents on it. To go in and do a raid at someone's house, but you don't have an arrest warrant for them. Yo, what's up? This is gonna get very interesting. I want to say shouts out to everybody that watches the channel, everybody who support the channel. We love and appreciate you guys. On our Carcino for Life Patreon, we will give you more in-depth information on this situation that you know about already, but not to this degree. Now, election year was rolling around, and the Republican needed a push, something that was going to change the dynamics of the election with Bill Clinton, who had gained a lot of momentum being pretty much unknown. He was becoming real keen with the African American people, just people in general. They liked his warmth approach. His humanity was winning people over. And they're like, how is this unknown going to do this? So they thought the war was going to be enough to win them over. Bush was banking on the war with Saddam Hussein. There's no way a president would lose an election after a war. This never happened before. President goes to war, that president normally gets elected. But it's very divisive because America was so behind them when they went against Saddam Hussein the first time. Now, all of these, what they call political crimes, were being brought to question, being brought to light. Dan Quayle needed to find a lightning in the rod. The polls weren't favorable in states that they normally would win. So they needed to create some type of ruckus. They needed to create something that was going to galvanize the American people and get them so far into fear of the future that they stay current and do not want to shake the tree, don't rattle the boat, or rock the boat. Stay with what you currently have. So, with the song Cop Killer by Ice-T and how the police were unifying to go up against rappers being able to say F the police and all of these different things. They had went against rap before and lost a sensory ban by getting a sticker placed on those records. This was an entirely different movement. This movement consisted of government political officials finding their new leverage. Back in the early 80s and 90s, hip hop was never looked at or viewed as a threat. It's just, okay, it's good to keep the gangbangers out of trouble and giving them recreation. It's not penetrating our neighborhoods. Then they started to see most of the kids, or some of them, were wearing hip hop clothing. So the schools had to come up with new policies to police that. No more baggy jeans. Had to wear your hat a certain way or no hat at all. So Bush was going to lose the election. Tupac Shakur gets into a situation where he was beaten. They had the Rodney King issue happen, and the LA riots took place with the LA Police Department. Tupac Shakur was assaulted and wrote a letter to the governments and officials. A lot of people don't know that. Tupac was very prolific in writing, and he wrote a letter to the government asking, is someone named enough to make someone a criminal? I don't know what the letter says, but I just know he wrote the letter with that intent on someone's name being making them a criminal just because of their name. I'm quite sure it was very prolific. By going and taking that approach, everyone had a warped sense of duty, sense of purpose, a warped sense of direction. There's so many different angles that was taken to make this a real thing, but when the Cop Killer song came out, they saw the angle that they could use to scare people, saying we're going to scare people to vote because we're going to scare people into thinking that these rappers now are dangerous. They're really dangerous. They can be coming in your household, your children are not safe. So that was the motivation that they had in play. What actually happened was even more scary. They make a press conference and single handedly call out Tupac Shakur. And his mother asked to see him. He was in Atlanta and he was actually in town. She came, she said, I need him to see me. Tell him to come visit. They had a group of people over, and Pac said, Ma, she's like, he's like, y'all having a barbecue over there? She was like, yes, but we need you to bring the drinks, bring the sodas. He's like, I got you. And he bring over this Fago soda. He had like this cheap soda stuff he got some beer for everybody, and he brought some liquor, brought that over. And she said, okay, when you set that down, can you come upstairs, please? He came up there and she said, son, they're coming for you. The federal government just mentioned your name on the. He's like, I know. They told me about it. And Pac had a beeper, so he was beeped, and he called in and they told him like the federal government just mentioned your name on television. The vice president of the United States of America just mentioned your name, Tupac Shakur. Pac thought this gonna help me sell my records. That the vice president knows my name. She says that's the most scariest thing you could ever have in your life is that the vice president of the United States of America, who's in charge of foreign policy, knows your name and said it in front of the entire world. That just put the biggest target on your back, son, and I'm worried for you. I didn't want this for you. Pac didn't have any fear whatsoever about it. And was like, I ain't going alive. That's what he said. I'm not going alive. If they come after me that way, I know how to come at them. But if they want to go another way, I ain't going alive, mama. He told him that. And she's like, I know, that's what I'm afraid of. Because I don't want them to have that and use that as the reason everyone else in the world would have to suffer. Because they will twist it and make you a violent, angry black man and use it as a stereotype to hold us down. They changed those angles. They changed that life. They changed everything. And once they did, they moved to a different position in life. They moved to a situation where most of the guys out there, they're on a whole different wavelength. These guys are savages in the game. Nobody can rattle their tree. No, 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 no. They ain't having it. So the name of the game has been something very clear. We're going to pivot and protect our own ass. They wanted to beat Bill Clinton so bad that they would stoop to any level to do it. Tupac Shakur already had a plan in place as they had a meeting when basically Sister Soldier and a lot of these people who were part of the government tree were coming after her. Public Enemy had problems. They split up the group and put them on the shelf. NWA, they decided to split and everybody went their own way. So they got rid of NWA. They've gotten rid of everything through policy. They went out to Warner Brothers record label, which was Sire, made them get rid of Ice-T off the label, even though he agreed to take the song off the record. Which wasn't even on an Ice-T. It was on Body Count's album, his rap group, his rock rap group called Body Count. And now, since Body Count album was whatever, Ice-T was going through all the hell he was, and Tupac noticed how none of the rappers came to stand with Ice-T, and he did. And he said, I'm the one that was standing up for him when a lot of rappers wasn't. It was me, King T. There's a lot of other West Coast rappers who was really gangsters in the streets. We stood with Ice-T. All the rappers who just rap, they ain't really no parts of the streets. They stayed quiet. And he was calling out Chuck D and Ice Cube, like, Cube, where you at? For not standing with Ice-T. Then Ice Cube did say something and step up for Ice-T. A lot of people don't know that happened. And Hank and Shock Lee and all those guys, they did rally behind Ice-T. And Ice-T got a lot of love from the East Coast because he was from both sides. He was really the generational plug from both sides because everybody used to tour together. And that's how I used to work. You know, you learn about culture. And then you would go out and see another rapper. He'd be like, yo, you in my town? Come see me. I got you. So they would come there and then that's what it would be. Now, I've seen this happen a million, zillion times, trillion at that. These people didn't have a clue about what to do with Tupac. They were scared. Everybody's scared to death. They don't know what to do, how to deal with it. Situation's out of control. So they said, well, here's what we're going to do. Because Tupac spoke at a Black Expo event and was very vocal. They tried to get Interscope Records to drop his contract. Interscope Records wouldn't do that. Ted Fields was not thrilled with being dictated to by the federal government. Well, the federal government knows one or two things about this industry. They know how to cripple it by going to the source. If we just go after these rappers politically, it's going to have an effect. What hip hop world and Tupac was able to do was to say, okay, y'all finna mobilize against us? We ain't having it. So he got with Ice Cube, he got with Queen Latifah, Naughty by Nature, and he got with all of these guys who wanted to get involved. Spike Lee was against it. Spike Lee, and this is why Tupac didn't respect Spike Lee. And when Spike said no, John Singleton said yes. And this is when John and Tupac was getting tight with each other. You know, and Tupac's this young kid who got this movie Juice, you know, so he's got his SAG license, he's got everything he needs. He's a rap star, entertainer, and they're trying to limit his career and get the record labels to drop him. Tupac went and made a strategic plan. He says, you don't go after the president of the United States. If I make a song called F. Bush and Dan Quayle, nobody knows about Quayle. Quayle, you don't go and vote for Quayle. You vote for George Bush. So I don't respond to him. And he had a whole different philosophy and said, I'm going to strangle Quayle by strangling his money. I'm going to strangle his support. I know where his stay. I've studied him. I know exactly where he gets his support from. I'm going to go do free concerts over there. I do a free show over there. And I'm going to get all the kids that's over there. And they're going to be all playing my music. And I'm not going to say a word about Quell. But I will talk bad about the regime and tell them what they really doing with the people's money over there. And that didn't go over well. Tupac took on the federal government. And once he did that, it was a whole new world. Nobody saw, once Tupac make you an enemy or declare you an enemy, there's very little you can do. You can strap on and hold on for the ride. Because it's finna get wild for you. Straight up. Now, I see it a little differently than how most of the people in the game see it. I see that I see the game is crazy. And when people set their minds to something they want to do, they normally do it. They pursue it with all reckless abandon, everything. So I'm sorry. I've got this bet I got to put in. Now, the way America is stacked up against us, Tupac went and got with everybody in the cabinet. He did speeches to the communities, and he got in trouble with the gun incident over there, and they tried to slam him, get him put in jail. The thing in Marin City, they were targeting Tupac Shakur. What Bush and Quayle failed to understand is this thing was bigger than Tupac Shakur, as he wasn't the ringleader, as they thought. There was no ringleader. You activated a people that was really didn't trust the government anyway. But now you've activated them, the youth. They underestimated the new 21-year-olds and the 22, 23-year-olds. They misunderstood the pull, that generation of babies. Those are the core babies because those babies witnessed a lot. They witnessed the 70s. They witnessed the 80s. And here it is, you're starting the 90s. And they have went through so much change in government, policy, new modern technology is starting to advance. They're seeing all of these things. And one thing they are is connected with what's going on in current events in the news. And once they see that the government is going against hip hop and they love hip hop, now you're activating these people to go against you. And all Tupac did was wave that momentum, wave it around. And once they heard you call his name out, and he went and gave that speech, it infuriated all of you. Tupac went to Arizona, gave a speech in Arizona at the youth center. Tupac went to every area he could to have rappers go to these schools. When they go do shows, go to these schools, speak to these kids. They gonna remember that for the rest of their life. Talk about this government. Talk about what they doing. Don't just go in there and shake their hand. And that was essential. I loved it. He mobilized hip hop that saw the government and it flashed the light, sort of like what Kendrick is doing now. Quayle just was on a mission and a quest to not make the government look bad. And Quayle, a stark racist, in my opinion, who was keen in making sure that the federal government did not put Martin Luther King Jr. as a holiday. Fought hard to make sure his racist counterparts maintained that. So when Tupac was dating a woman from Arizona, who was a white woman, and was out that way with her or whatever, and he was speaking at these schools, and Tupac was like, I should go to the Senate. And the white girl said, no, they would kill you for that. Do not go out and address the Senate. She was scared for his life. Pac didn't care. Now on the Patreon, I'm gonna fill in a lot of the blanks that's in this video. So if you go to the Patreon later on, probably today or tonight, I'll put the missing pieces in. Because there's a lot of missing pieces in this. Now, during his early tenure, he was pretty much quick to snap and go off, and a lot of people looked at him as a doofus in the political world. So he was not even really respected. So when Dan Coates, who took over at the United States Senator from Indiana, Tupac Shakur was able to speak on Dan Coates and say, Dan's a good guy, blah, 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 blah. And this was a show they did at, I want to say they called it, I forgot where it was, but it was in Indiana. And this is like mostly the black area of Indiana. Tupac, Queen Latifah, Naughty by Nature. This is 1991, 92. They came out to Indiana, they did the show, and I think Bill Clinton was getting the nomination for President of the United States, right along with Ross Perot. And it was push the Bush. We gotta push the Bush. They had the buttons that normally had Naughty by Nature. See, I don't know if you guys know back in the 90s, it was a button craze. Everybody had to have a button. So they had push the Bush. We gotta push the Bush out. So Tupac came out and gave a powerful, like, man, these motherfuckers, push the Bush. So they was pushing the Bush. Then Digital Underground got involved. Everybody started getting activated. And every city and state they were going to, rappers was against anybody. The Push the Bush campaign was started by rappers. Rap and hip hop came up with Push the Bush. We got to push Bush out of office. They never mentioned Quell. This is his home state. So now he tried to get all hip hop shows banned in Indiana. Every hip hop show in the state of Indiana banned. If they yell profanities, ban them. This, ban them, ban them. He wanted their records to stop being sold If they're saying this on the record, ban it. He was really ticked off. But what it did was wake up that group. They were 21 years old, 20-year-olds, 21-year-olds, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27. They were 30-year-olds, all in one group, listening to this hip hop. Tupac wasn't really that big in the rap game. You made him, you put the spotlight on him so that everybody would pay attention. And now you're going to hear what he has to say. And now they're going to have everybody galvanized to him. And Pac had such a powerful voice. You couldn't help but hear him. Now you created this new dynamic that you can't escape from. So good luck. That's what they wanted to bring. The reality back to the game. They wanted to bring that knowing back to the game. You have to know this is the dynamic that you're into. You got to know. I fail to see a scenario I fail to see a scenario in which I would say there's some guys out there that just can't get things to fly their way. You know, I'm looking at the angle of what happened back then and how they were able to change the vote to get it to go that the way, and Bill Clinton ends up winning by a landslide victory because there was no way possible these guys were going to allow an outsider to come in and win. It was highly unlikely. And to have that take place was kind of crazy. But he dominated the black vote. Clinton saw that he had a big, huge momentum with hip hop culture, and hip hop embraced him. So he rode that wave. He was on Arsenio Hall, and all the rappers who was there, he didn't say, "Hey, keep them away from me." He let them come in. He shook those guys' hands, black comedians, um, black rappers, anybody, reverends. They all had his back because he saw the momentum that was created by hip hop and said, "We're going to push the Bush." And they rode that campaign that hip hop created. So Dan Quayle helped create the demise of, of his president by making that choice to choose hip hop as some John Doe thing he could attack. And they lost office. And he has been starkly against hip hop, trying to destroy it ever since. But Tupac helped mobilize and get everyone together. East Coast, West Coast, everywhere you were. We had to get on an agenda. So now, all of those old rules You can't use this word in this town or you go to jail. You can't grind on a girl on stage or you go to jail. All of that got eliminated. Hip hop pushed these people in place. But they got something worse. They end up adopting Joe Biden and got a much worse vice president. Now, we're going to go on the Patreon, like I said before, and discuss what happens behind the scenes. But now you know pretty much the precipice of what we're talking about, and you're going to get those missing pieces that we spoke about earlier. But this woke Tupac up into the political world of what was going on and got him involved. And, you know. Well, we'll talk about that later. Shouts out to Dan DPOV. Welcome to HDII TV. Sports Talk with Jose Rodriguez. Armando Black TV. Don't forget, donate to the page. You can donate to my Cash App, which is Carceno, Karceno, and I'm out the door.